need to say anything?
Well, you might want to put it on the slideshow.
Oh yeah, that's all. Silly me. Now, here's a good question.
Go to
Go
right.
Go right into the
No,
bottom.
so-
Oh yeah, you
Bottom
can do it
again.
that way.
Okay. And how's this? Oh,
That's it.
how's this work?
Right and left just moves the slides forward and back.
Okay, so my FMP proposal is going to be working on promotion and music journalism in the local scene around York and Manchester, focusing on folk and indie music. So essentially what I'll be doing is I'll be working with a local promotion company called FLK, and I'll be helping them gain a wider audience and build a clear visual identity to sort of promote more gigs and bring in more money. I'll be doing that through, my main focus will be making a zine, so I'll be taking interviews from local bands and reviews of local performances and publishing that under the FLK label. And for the sort of, I'll also be doing social media, because Sunny, who will also be working with FLK, has requested that I specifically help him with social media. My essential final product will be, of course, a finished zine, and then I'll be promoting and organising myself a zine launch gig, which will essentially have a few artists that are featured in the zine performing, and we'll be giving away the zine for free as promotional material for the company at that gig. So the reason I wanted to do this is because that's not fixed itself. I did fix that earlier. Recently, I've been getting very involved with the local community. Some of the bands I've been befriending and sort of just going to their gigs and spending time with. That is Ned Swarbrick on the left. He's a folk musician. He's only 17, but he's already playing really big gigs in Leeds. That's Rowan and Friends, who are a independent folk band. They've got an album coming out soon. That's Bull. You might have heard of them. They've opened for Pavement before. But yeah, just with the political state of the world right now, I really wanted to do something community focused and just work with a wide range of people. And I considered collaborative songwriting. I thought, maybe I could interview different songwriters in the scene and work with them. But my feedback from my FMP last year suggested that I work on branding and building up socials. So I wanted to build that skill. And then also, I did performance last year, and since joining college I've been part of the band Strip, as you're aware, and I already do collaborative songwriting there, so I feel like I wouldn't actually gain that much as a skill. I'm interested in building more of a portfolio career, and I think the wide variety of what I'll be doing in this project will really help me with that. I also may not be doing music next year, so I might be doing English. Something more journalism based would probably benefit me with my progression. So how am I going to be doing it? As I've said, I'll be focusing on making a zine and also on social media. So the sort of aesthetic and attitude of FLK promotions, it's a relatively new promotion, but there's a very DIY sort of folk-based, grounded vibe that we want to cultivate, and I think zines are a perfect way to do that. They're a great way to communicate ideas within a specific group of people, for example, the community around York, and they have deep bass in like punk culture. Yeah. Really annoying that it's not fixed itself, but it's fine. So my initial research, hold on. So what I've done so far, I've made a mood board for the project, and that's just the design ideas that I'd like to apply to the social media posts I'll be making and the zine itself. I've gathered observations about the local scene, which I'll be researching further, and this is what I'll be writing about. For secondary, I've gathered a few zines that I would like to take inspiration from. I like the writing, the style, the content, and I've also done some research into how zines are actually made, just to prepare me. So this is just a brief history on zines because I thought it was necessary. They're a key aspect of counterculture, and they're essentially an anti-establishment way to spread information. The first zine came out of the Harlem Renaissance in 1926. It was called Fire, and it was a collection of essays from young black authors discussing race, sexuality, etc. In the 70s, zines became a massive form of communication when punk became popular. They became an outlet for political expression. And then in the 90s, fanzines became a massive thing with Riot Girls. They used zines to sort of discuss music, like Bikini Kill, Babes in Toyland, while combining that with politics. And while FLK isn't going to be a directly political zine, I think the focus on community and the fact that it is a zine is in itself inherently political. So, the York scene. Basically, what I've observed from the York scene is a real focus on analog equipment, very like almost moving away from the modern like digital age, and there's a big focus on community. All of the bands in York sort of work together, they share equipment, they put gigs on together, and they all meet at the Golden Ball on Mondays for the open mic, which is run by Tom Baer from Bull. One of the venues that I'd like to focus on is the Arts Barge. It's essentially a music venue within a boat, and it's run by Kai from Bull, and it's a really positive place to put gigs on because there's free food for everyone who works there and all the performers. It's just an example of how community-based York is. So, another piece of initial research I did was I went to see a documentary at the Crescent, and it was the Elephant Six Recording Company. It's about bands like the Olivia Tremor Control and Neutral Milk Hotel, who were this big community of musicians in Athens, in Arizona, I think it is. And they all lived together, they all worked together, they released records together. I noticed a lot of similarities with the York scene. What I liked, it's essentially a very similar thing to what I want to do, just through film instead of printed media. It's a different medium but the same ideas. And the key parts that I picked up from the documentary is the way that they use visuals to build sentiment and atmosphere, and to convey the style of the music that was being made. And they also interviewed prominent members of the community. This is the mood board I've made, just lots of scenes, lots of, as you can see, very DIY, predominantly very simple earthy colours. I think that'll really fit with what we're trying to go for. But yeah, just want to have a quick look at that. And then these are the zines that I chose in my secondary research to use as inspiration. So the one on the left is Queen's House. It's not a music-based zine, but it is a York-based zine. and it's based on the queer community in York. There's a lot I'd like to take out of it. There's quizzes. It's a collaborative zine, whereas mine will be written just by me. But it's very community based and it knows a lot about York. Yo-Yo is a York specific music scene, and I really like the way that they interview people. Part of my secondary research in the project will be more closely inspecting their interview technique. Then Razor Cake is a magazine I found online. It's a DIY punk scene, and there's lots of good stuff about doing everything yourself, analog material, underground gigs, which I really like. I think that's very true to the spirit of scenes. And then this is Puncture. It's an independent American magazine. It's no longer in print, but it was founded in 1982 and it's got a lot of my favourite bands in. I'd also like to mention Super Crush Scene. I went to one of their events in Manchester after I'd already made the presentation. They have a focus on American music, even though they're based in Manchester, which I'm not a fan of, but I do like the style that they use. So, zine making, zines are essentially made by making one master copy, which has all your content in. You just make that and then you make copies of that. If you're doing a physical master copy of physical media, which I'm leaning towards because it's more authentic, you have to scan it and then print it, whereas a digital master copy is almost more beginner friendly because you don't have to scan it, it's a bit easier to print, it's less expensive because you need less resources, but luckily for me, I already have a lot of the resources I need, like printer paper, stamps, I have a craft knife, but yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to do a physical master copy. And then this is what I will be doing for my research throughout the project. So, primary research, I'm going to interview local promoters. I've got my eye on no instrument promotion and road less travelled. I'll be visiting different venues so that I can decide which one I'd like to use for the gig I'm putting on at the end of the project, and I'll be comparing pros and cons. I'm going to go across Manchester and York. Obviously, I'd ideally like to do it in York, but it's difficult with timings. It'll be a very busy time of the year. I'll need to book the venue, contact bands, booking bands and sorting equipment for the gig. I'll also need to fully promote and ticket the gig. I need to do a lot of research into how ticketing works. Then for the zine itself, I'll be reviewing local gigs, interviewing bands, and, that should be in my secondary, but I'll be analysing the inspiration zines that I found as sources during my initial secondary research. Then for my secondary research, I'll be learning about the music scene through newspapers, articles, blogs, magazines, such as Bill Adamson's With a Hint of Mayhem. He's interviewed me before, but I've not had a chance to fully go through his blog. I think there'd be a lot of good resources on there. I need to do a bit of further research into zine making and different zine techniques and templates. For example, do I keep going? Yeah.
He's not offending, he's not what's it,
Yeah.
he's just making sure it's more quiet.
I need to decide what template I'd like to use, what size of zine. I need to figure out how they actually work and how they're assembled. And then I'll be reading articles on the creative writing and journaling process to make sure that my content is to the best it can be. Okay, so practical skills. The personal skills I'd like to focus on are organisation, communication and time management. Obviously have a big workload, so organisation is going to be very important. I've been using a physical calendar that I have on my wall, and I'll be writing every little update, deadline, date on that, so that I can see it every morning and it's fresh in my mind. I will also be evaluating every week what task was the most time consuming and what was a priority, so that I can sort of apply that data to the next week and understand how I can go about things in the most efficient way. Communication, obviously reaching out to bands and venues and also working with someone else in the promotion. I'll need to really build that communication skill. Just making sure it's done in a timely fashion and professionally will be the main focus. Time management, I'll have external deadlines weighing down on me for the promotional material and obviously for the course itself. So I'll need to stick within that, but I'll be building a schedule and following my weekly plan. I've also accounted for lost time and have catch-up days, and I'll be keeping track of my timekeeping every week to make sure I don't stray too far.
Just on that, Bella, I think you only got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I know. So my artistic and musical skills, music journalism, it's actually sort of a mix of multiple skills. The key aspects are active listening, exploring how context shapes music, critical musical analysis and interview techniques. So I'll be interviewing Bill Adamson on his blog with Just a Hint of Mayhem, just to see how he approaches music journalism, interview techniques. And I'll also be using peer feedback to improve the quality of my work, and I'll be researching artist inspiration before I interview them to really get strong questions that people will be interested in reading. Marketing and graphics, I'll be building a visual identity for FLK. To make sure everyone's happy, I'll be consulting, which is obviously also a communication skill. Consulting bands to see what sort of style